They carry an HF Yagi to put up there. It's disassembled, but they carry one. They got a camera up there. Still going off.
This is part of the satellite system. You know what this is, a VCR. Direct TV, this is direct TV dish. This controls the camera. This is a ham radio data. This is a ham radio. This is deploying the excuse me. This, you know what a motor bridge is? Okay, that's a motor bridge. Oh wow. It's a different company. Okay, over on that side, UHF, VHF, UHF, VHF, a scanner. That's a federal radio, Limo radio. We take this motor bridge, you look at the numbers assigned to these radios in different places, JPS 6, we come down here and dial it in and interface it. My favorite joke is interface the next cell phone thing, but I haven't done it yet, but I may do it yet.
Did y'all ever get permission to use the airband, VHF airband? Not yet.
So you basically plug in any frequency you want, so if you're working, we need a third channel or something, you can plug that in.
I can actually
patch us over to FEMA or whatever.
Right. Now, when you need a metro system, we have the motor bridge to mutual aid and then into this. I can actually put a repeater on the air with the radios I've got here. Where I normally control span, I can take two VHFs and configure them using one of these antennas down low and one up on the top.
Have you ever had to do that?
Oh yeah.
I've never seen it.
Well, it's been here about 5 years. We've done it out in Bowie County. This stays out in Bowie County.
Okay, thanks. This is a VHF, UHF, HF radio for ham right there. You got CB here.
Yep. Ham, low band VHF for Red Cross, CB, VHF, UHF scanner, satellite radio. Nextel there. There's a BlackBerry there.
So you really could patch a phone to a CB probably.
You've got a siren in here.
Yes, I know. Yes.
Just made them,
Yeah.
But underneath the hood of this thing, attached to the engine is a 5 kW origin generator. So
I'll have to check that out. So what would, I guess from our perspective in the fire department, who would call you? Would it be Metro Safety probably?
that'd be EMA, yeah. EMA would call us.
Because they would know either they've got a problem with their system.
Right. EMA, it comes down from EMA. And now, in the back end of this thing, I carry, well, the easiest way to look at all of the door, I can show you. Just look at the door, because it all has to go in there like that to get in here. Wireless kit, laptop, so there's 6 laptops in there. There's 6 more in here. GPS switch remote. Okay, he just went in with a test set and a package of it was 10 cell phones, but we carried ran in there somewhere with little boxes. this man of 10 voice over IP phones. The one you see on the desk there, that's a voice over IP phone. The only way it works is if we have an internet connection with that big satellite device. First time I used it was Marengo when they had the tornado go through. We go up there at 1:30 in the morning. Set this thing up. You got to call the national and they tweak the signal in for you once you get on the satellite. We handed the fire chief voice over IP phone. Search dog team was up there. We give him voice over IP phone and a laptop.
So with all the cell service went out in this area.
They didn't have some. We can provide cell service. We can provide telephone service with 10 phones to start with. Now, if we're serious, if it's serious, all I got to do, if I'm the operator on this vehicle, just call National up, send them an email, say, hey, I need 250 more voice over IP phones, 500 cell phones, 200 more laptops, and FedEx will show up the next day with it. Assuming it's a work day, I call it.
And assuming FedEx can get into the disaster area.
FedEx will get here if we can.
Okay.
So the camera is just used for
In Marengo, we used it when it got daylight. We were sitting up on a hill. We kind of just used it. We used the VCR to record the damage.
Well, how about everything's turning like that? It's kind of pick up something.
Yeah, right now it's trying to see the signal. It doesn't have a card in it, so it's trying to find it. Okay. So we're on the other side.
We can have a, when they go in, we bring in our meeting.
I'm going to put Gerald on the hot seat because he's deployed with this thing more than I have. I do the dog and pony shows here, is what I call it. And I've been doing a bunch of them lately. Elementary schools, went to Lexington for the equestrian games to basically, what have you got on there that can help us if the unthinkable happens? Well, we got satellite dish and a lot of other stuff. And phone call away is 10 times that much stuff. So. But anyway, I've got a little canned presentation that one of the ECRV organizations put together, and probably have to turn the speakers up because I brought my little ones. Just put the second here to start playing. If I can see what I'm doing.
Hey Greg, can you turn the lights down over there?
That's good.
Yeah.
The voice up
Well, over there by the door.
Come on.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, we got a really good deal.
It's cool.
It's muted.
It's important. But the Red Cross' basic responsibility as an organization is to meet people's basic needs. Food, clothing, shelter, we had counseling.
There are historical needs that people have when they're faced with a disaster. And all of those basic necessities that we sometimes take for granted, we try to cover those for people.
If you look at how the Red Cross responds to a disaster, the first thing they bring to the site are people that are trained and people that kind of understand what needs to be done in order to help others. The biggest thing the Red Cross has in its toolbox to help out is money. What they do is they work with clients, figure out what their needs are, and more often than not, provide the clients with a debit card.
It's never a tremendous amount of money, but it's enough to get you clothing and food when you have lost everything that you would have otherwise.
We provide our clients with the ability to immediately go to the store and make purchases for their recovery.
You have not only the client receiving assistance, but you're helping to boost the local economy as well because the client is spending the money locally. That's how the Red Cross differs from other agencies.
One critical part of a Red Cross response to a disaster
comes from a small team of volunteers who deploy technology to establish communication for its operations. Disaster Services Technology responds to disasters with the latest in high-tech equipment to help the Red Cross do its job.
The idea of response technology is to provide everybody that's on the Red Cross staff with the communications tools and the computing tools that they need in order to deliver the services that the Red Cross provides in time of a disaster.
When we go into a disaster scene, it's not uncommon to have all of the connectivity that was there gone. Telephones don't work, there's no internet access, there's nothing there. And we've seen that disaster after disaster. The Red Cross has a lot of experience and many, many years of experience dealing with disasters.
To provide critical communication in a disaster, the Red Cross built a unique fleet of high-tech response vehicles called ECRVs, or Emergency Communication Response Vehicles. Based on previous field experience, the Red Cross built these vehicles around satellite, computer, and radio technologies to bypass existing infrastructures, which are often unreliable in a disaster.
The ECRV is a very large sport utility vehicle, which has been heavily modified. It provides basic capabilities.
It's antennas, and it has radios, and it has satellite equipment, and it has cameras. And
It is stuffed full of every kind of equipment that you might need first on scene at a disaster.
it's the toolbox for response technology.
What the ECRV has on it is a satellite dish that allows us to establish an internet connection, and that internet connection allows us to do both data and voice. With that truck, which also has its own source of power, you can literally set up a office operation or a client assistance center and run that entire operation using the resources that are on the truck.
We literally can provide everything that is needed to get things started.
When tornadoes struck Greensburg, Kansas, 2 ECRVs responded. One arrived within hours from Kansas City to provide communication for the shelters and food operations. Another truck came from Chicago to build the needed infrastructure to support the larger response from Red Cross workers who were deployed to the disaster relief operation.
Well, my first deployment was to a rather major disaster in Greensburg, Kansas. It was a tornado, an F5 tornado that literally wiped the town out.
But this was an amazing thing. 90% of the town was gone. And we're talking about just not homes, we're talking about, churches and restaurants and hotels and everything. Banks were completely smashed to smithereens. There was nothing left. And it's really, you start over again.
The first problem that you have is that there's absolutely no connectivity. Phones are gone, internet's gone, everything's gone. And so we can bring the ECRV into the area where the disaster has occurred, usually within 12 hours of the disaster occurrence.
And we were not the first responders, but we were the second wave of responders, so we could start to set up the next wave of support. First wave guys were putting in the shelters, they put in some mass care, they helped people with their immediate needs within the first 48 hours. And our next assignment was to help start to put in the headquarter infrastructure and start to build a service center so that the clients could start to meet with caseworkers.
Our purpose is to support the organization as a whole. We're kind of like an information technology department on wheels. We may not necessarily be working directly with the client, the person affected by the disaster, but we're helping other Red Cross workers do what they need to do.
Disasters change everything.
It was a little overwhelming. And what was very heartening, though, was to see the amazing number of folks that were working together to kind of get things done. Not just Red Cross, a lot of other organizations were there doing their part. And it was amazing how many of them were there working sort of seamlessly to kind of get stuff done.
The ECRV is really meant to be a short-term solution, 2 or 3 days. And during that time, we are shipping in equipment from the Response Maintenance Center located in Austin, Texas, where we're sending in what we call flyaway kits, which are temporary satellite systems that are set up on the ground and anchored down, and they can stay more permanent. We're also sending in cases of computers, cases of telephones, cell phones, printers, fax machines, everything that an office would need if you were to start up a business, for example.
And it takes a huge infrastructure to run essentially a Fortune 500 company. I mean, when you have a large-scale event, that's literally what happens.
So it's not untypical for us to take a warehouse or a closed-down Walmart or Kmart or store and take that empty shell and within 2 days, 3 days, turn it into a multi-million-dollar operation where we have a human resource department, logistics. We have RTT, Response Technology, which is equivalent to your IT department.
See you next month.
You have a security and safety department. You have a marketing department. You have a public relations department. You have an administrative team of people that are administrating all of this. And then you have the client service people, the people that are meeting with the clients. That's much like your salesman in a store. You've taken this empty shell and you've turned it into a multi-million-dollar operation within a matter of 2 days.
You have a chance to really get involved in a lot of different levels of complexity in terms of network and communications.
It's an exciting kind of work because you know when you have that equipment set up, everything else starts. And that's the name of the game. That's the point. Help the clients.
So it's not unusual to have a network in a big operation that has probably got, several hundred up to 1,000 nodes, and you're actually managing and running that entire network. And that's kind of fun, challenging, and exciting.
The ECRV provides forward response in a disaster. Often it is first on the scene before any organized response is started. Hurricane Katrina demonstrated the capabilities of the truck.
I personally responded to that disaster to Gulfport, Mississippi. The ECRV arrived in Gulfport. There were still puddles on the ground. Windows were still boarded up. And there were about 50 Red Cross workers that had gone through the hurricane in this facility. Had no communications of any type except for a ham radio operator operating out of his pickup truck in a parking lot off the battery on his truck. That ham radio operator gave us directions into the facility. As we arrived, there were Red Cross workers standing outside guiding us in, had already cleared a space right next to the building. We left our generator running, which is right off the engine of the vehicle. My partner started to put up the satellite dish. I started carrying some computers into the building. I ran a link to coax cable because they had found a television in the building. And within an hour, those 50 people were able to pass email messages, make some phone calls, all through the ECRV using the wireless voice-over IP telephones that we gave them, and was able to watch national network news and saw the first coverage of the hurricane that they had gone through less than 24 hours earlier. We then installed antennas to the top of our mast, put the mast up 50 feet, because ham radio was being used for the whole rest of that week to talk among the 3 emergency operations centers for the 3 counties in southern Mississippi. It was a perfect application of the ECRV, and it was the only link to the rest of the world for the remaining week that I was there and then for some time thereafter.
When you look at a disaster, you go, they're all the same. And I've been on several now, and no two are ever alike. They're different because the physical circumstances are different. More often than not, our headquarters are located maybe in a church or a school building or some other general purpose facility. So the first thing you have to do is just go in there and just figure out, wow, how am I going to take this empty space and in the course of 24 to 48 hours turn it into basically an office that probably has someplace between 50 and 100 people working in it.
There are many ways for you to get involved with the Red Cross. Joining the ECRV and Disaster Services Technology team is just one avenue of support.
I like volunteering for the Red Cross because it gives me a chance to do things that I don't normally do in my day in and day out life. I mean, I'm a technologist, I love technology, but this is a chance to use technology in settings that are different than what I do professionally.
But really, it's a way of sharing the talents and skills I have with other people.
As the ECRV has evolved and as the program has evolved, I really like being the guy who jumps in and starts getting things going and then gets out.
It's not a job that's for everybody, but it's mentally challenging, it's physically challenging, and it really gives you a chance to kind of find out what you can do and what you're made of.
It's very rewarding and reassuring that I'm not just taking up space on this planet. I'm doing something better. And when you see the desperate needs of these clients, no question about why you're there. None whatsoever.
All right, we're going to turn the lights on. I know some of you don't want to see me, but I want to see y'all. Okay, Gerald can tell you, he's been How many? Four deployments. I've done local ones, still a lot of dog and pony shows, but I went to Pikeville. We did not take the ECRV to Pikeville, but we did set up in a space about this big. It's a fire department training facility. And when I walked out of there a week later, there was not enough room to move in the mornings. It's got all your client assistance people coming in. They're getting their tasking. We were running 3 counties at the time. Pike County flooding by the end of the week because we had Carlet County and Rock Castle. So they were running people from Pikeville all the way out to that. We had to send computers with some of the people that had, those computers had cell phone modems in them. We had to supply, those people had to have food and water when they went out on the thing. They get a meal ticket, but we also have cases of water sitting there for them to have that. But as far as the ECRV, they kind of give you an idea of what's on it. I brought in a little sampling of the small stuff. Everybody's seen computers, everybody's seen radios, but I brought in the simple stuff. There's a box of UHF walkie-talkies that are battery powered. They're already pre-programmed with certain UHF frequencies on commercial GMRS or whatever that Red Cross is using. 2 of them, you haven't seen it yet, but there's a modal bridge or a JPS switch in the back of the vehicle. We can interface any radios that are in there. My favorite joke is the next Delta CV. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to do it. But we can cross-band or cross-connect any of the radios that are there. And by the same token, 2 of those walkie-talkies have a touchtone pad on it. We can control that JPS switch remotely. Just like you do when you're doing dual band operation. You can change channels or whatever if you want to get into it that much. A little simple RF and meters, SWR bridge back there. I brought in a box of, I believe those are Verizon cell phones. We go outside, you'll see that it's full of stuff. Normally it goes with that 12 to 16 laptop computers, 9 voice over IP phones that work off the wireless system. One is permanently attached to the vehicle. That's the one we use after we get the satellite dish up. When you roll up on the scene, i.e. the situation they had, no communication, we get on the satellite phone that's in the truck. We've come a long way since Cheryl and I went through the class. We used to have to cite that dish manually. Now, little computer in the back, at least get them pointed in the right direction. It won't get us on the satellite, but it'll get us pointed in the right direction. You put in the lat and long for the position of that, and it'll bring you around, and then you've got to fine tune it. And then once you get on satellite, you call the dock up, and they will fine tune it even more. But you're doing that operation by a satellite phone. And that ain't cheap, folks. That phone is not cheap. Sometimes you're on there for an hour because one of the things you run into when you start giving out those voice over IP phones, we can't give them out until we have the public service access number, i.e. the real number behind 911, because they reprogram that. That goes through Washington, D.C., and that tells the 911 operator, if it's working or wherever, that, hey, this is assigned to somebody at a certain time. Being a voice over IP phone, the range of it is not that extensive. About 300 feet. We can do a little better than that when we put the antenna up. And Gerald will tell you that's a good way to get your phones back at the end of the night. People like to walk off with them and take them to wherever they're staying, shelter or a motel. You go out there and let that antenna down, and the range on them wireless phones gets real short, and the next morning they come in and go, my cell phone didn't work. Well, that's not a cell phone. And so they bring them back to you when their batteries are run down. They come with extra batteries. On board there is a Kenwood TS2000 in the back, an ICOM 706 up front in the console. There's a Midland CB in there, there's a scanner in there, there's a Vertex low-band radio in there for Red Cross. That's the only one the driver is allowed to operate going down the road.
So they can't get smoky reports over the CB?
You don't have time for that. Well, we got scanners there. If you go out there and look, I don't know who had it last, but they had Tennessee Highway Patrol and all that program to it. And, yeah, you get smoky reports, I'm sure, if you want to listen to the CD. I don't even know that I've ever turned it on. It's got VHF, UHF in the console between the drivers. It's got the satellite phone I was talking about. It's got a Nextel phone in it. It's got a BlackBerry that's assigned to the vehicle that the headquarters will call you on because they know what phone is in that vehicle. Driving down the road, you can receive a fax. So as you're going down the road, if they can't get a hold of you with the cell phone, they'll send you a fax, and the next time you stop to take a break, you can go back there and say, oh, we need to go back home, or we need to go 400 miles the other way, if they change their mind. It's in the back of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, he made the comment about go back home. The truck here was on its way to someplace in Kansas, an ice storm, and got over in Illinois, and that's when we had the train derailment down here in Bullitt County, and all they did was do a 180 and come right back. We had a disaster in our local community, so basically they called another truck in to cover, so that happens. Had tornadoes, where was it, Georgia? Dispatched 2 trucks, and this one here, they told it, you just keep on going, you're not going to stop in Georgia. Went all the way to Miami for the Super Bowl.
Wow.
You get one signal and you can get changed in routes.
That is a disaster.
And they have you go down there and get set up just in case.
Also, what he's talking about, when the hurricanes are supposedly coming in, they'll deploy these vehicles, i.e., it's going to hit Florida or something. Okay, they'll go to maybe Atlanta and stage them off. If it's going to go up the East Coast, they might go on down in maybe Birmingham or something like that. They're not going to stage them in the area where they're going to get damaged, if they can help. That's a $275,000 vehicle out there. Now, the UAW and the Ford Motor Company donated the vehicle. And I would say that most of the radios on there were donated by Kenwood, Icon, Vertex, Phoenix King, Midland for the CB, and then Motorola's got I doubt if that one was donated. That's a female sheriff radio, so I doubt if that one was donated. We're talking federal government and Motorola. They don't believe in giving anything in this country. Right. I'd be Philippines, I can say that. But the satellite dish is there. Like they said, they made a little spiel about your client gets a debit card. Well, there was no communications out of the area, in the area. The debit card can't be activated. Now we can activate a debit card if we have a phone that we can call. Problem is, we go to the store. Their equipment's not going to work. How many stores still have the old manual machines that allows them to do it? So we got to have that. Now, from your view, why do we have a satellite system that's semi-secure? Folks, do you want your personal information put out over ham radio, your social security number, where you live, and all that? I mean, yes, 90% of our information is available, but in a disaster, Red Cross has an obligation for information to be secure. I'll give you an example of this, and this was an ECRV operator that brought up the question. We were down at Pike County. We've got the disaster assessment teams out. He said, can we go to the store and buy some FRS radios so that when they get out of the vehicle, that they can communicate back, hey, I found something, or there's a big dog back here, come back and help me get out of here. and also pass information back down the road that, about people. Quick answer is no, because you can't pass personal information. No, you don't. If they ask for radios to communicate for people's safety, I could call them and got one of those boxes shipped in. Gerald's got one here. I printed these off. These are all of the Red Cross's website, and it's stuff that it's on that thumb drives in my pocket. But that's what one of the ham kits looks like that they ship in. And this one here is, no, this is actually the low-band VHF kit. VHF 4742. This is the ham. It comes in with power supply, radio, coax, an antenna, and you go to the store and find a piece of top rail fence or whatever to mount it. That's, don't tell how many of those are sitting in Austin. Packaged up to be shipped. The one that I showed you first, an example of that is you're running a shelter. Like Pike County, we didn't do it because we had good cell phone service, but we were running a shelter on the other side of the town. If we didn't have cell phone service or phone service, we would have requested 2 of those radios and been able to communicate with the shelter. So that's the kind of stuff. And there's thousands of radios, thousands of laptops for them to deploy. But the first thing that vehicle does when it gets on scene is get that dish up so that, first off, if there's no communication, hey, we have people here that have nothing. We need generators. We need food. We need water. We can get that information out. We can start getting an estimate out to national. We have 50 people that need something, or we have 5,000 people who need food, water, and bedding and stuff. And also start getting their information issue fire assistance cards and their debit cards. They go out, disaster assessment, you go out in the vehicle and you drive by, and this is a drive-by. I mean, you drive by and you go, it was 5 feet of water. Okay, it's major damage. Next house doesn't have anything. Oh, that house is totally gone. So you write that down as quickly as you can, get your estimate, you go back and report that. That's what local government does their estimate of how bad the damage is. Get the FEMA, start leveling it up, bringing it up. Pike County, when we got there at 11 o'clock at night, so we didn't know what we were getting until everything had been flooded again. And next morning, we met with the emergency services director at about 11 o'clock at night. He says, Pike County has been fully digital mapped. Every building here has got a dot on the map. Now, can't tell you that's a house or an outhouse, but every building's got a dot. When I, being the smart aleck I am, I go, did you photograph them too? He says, we hadn't got to that point yet. The next morning we went in, he said, where's the most calls coming from? They printed us out a 30 by 40 sheet and handed every one of us a county-wide book of streets and everything. We looked at that map and said, we're going here first, because that's where all the calls were coming in. On the way down there, we were told there's 27 flares destroyed. You know, they were a little incorrect. There were 17 in this pile and 10 in this pile. But the first group of them just looked like you just spun them in the whirlpool. The other 10, which were all the same mobile home park, were just sandwiched together. That was the worst. I mean, we knew that. But second day, they come out and said, hey, we got people that are having to walk out of Hollis Creek because you can't even get to them. They were having to take people, firefighters were taking them on ATVs back and doing the disaster assessment. And Salvation Army was down there and set up the local firehouses and had the food for them. First day they served 3,000 meals for lunch. They were out. And that's how many people were there. Amazing the amount of water and cleaning solution and all that that came in.